as a spatial relationship data type. And then what you can do is they have methods on top of that data type. And you can say, does this longitude and latitude intersect the longitude and latitude over there as a where clause? It will bring up all the values in your database. You can pass that to virtual Earth, and it will map it for you. It will put them as push pins. It'll give you driving directions, things like that. So, good example of that. Is everyone familiar with The Economist magazine? One person. It's a magazine based in Britain. There you go. They talk about the news. So in this particular case, they're talking about North Korea. And this is a real live application from theeconomist.com using SQL Server 2008. They partnered with Microsoft. And basically what that means is they said, we're willing to use an alpha version of SQL Server 2008 if you come here and do it for us. That's what happened. And this is a real live mapping of the trajectory of the missiles that they're building in North Korea. So there's 3 types or 4 types of missiles that they're building in North Korea. The Noomdong. My Korean is about as poor as my Arabic. But there's the Noomdong, the Trakdong, and the Trakdong 2. So in the middle is Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. So we use that as our center point, meaning we will assume that they would launch a missile from somewhere in North Korea. So the Noomdong missile, its range is 1,300 kilometers. That's represented here. That is stored using the geometric data type I was just talking to you about. And what it does is it will plot all the longitude and latitude that intersects with that midpoint in Pyongyang. And that fills in this circle. So in virtual Earth, we'll fill in this circle. The Taekdong 1 has a range of 10,000 kilometers. So that shows you the range on the map. And then lastly, the Taekdong 2 has a range of about 15,000 kilometers. That's where we get worried in the United States because we hit Alaska. What? Yeah. No, Egypt is just out of range. You know, ever hear of a type 2 error? Right? You know, one little type 2 error, like, 10 to 15,000 kilometers. What if it's 16,000 kilometers? Bam! There's Cairo. Don't be afraid. Excuse me? This maps to a geometric data type. It's a new data type. And the geometric data type can take longitude and latitude. This is SQL Server 2008. Okay, so this is brand new. So this is mapping the same thing, but what it's doing is it's mapping it on a different plane where it says what happens if the actual missile itself goes off here, and then it's looking at the actual time zones. And then it's mapping it around in the circumference, right? It's actually taking a range and saying, what is the range around the sphere of the Earth? Okay, right? So it's actually looking at around what if it flew. Obviously a missile doesn't do that, right? But what if the missile actually went that way around the Earth and it would have that type of range? Okay, so they're just taking the data type and playing with it and showing how all of this is just a simple database query. And as I said, developer showed me this yesterday. Simple database query. The where clause just says, where does it intersect? It returns the coordinates, and you pass those coordinates to virtual Earth. Virtual Earth does the rest. It's about, George, how many lines of code? 8 lines of code?
Almost 4.
What?
Almost 4.
4 lines of code. That was a data set, right? It was a simple data set. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, what was the return type?
Return type to the data set. What's the return type to the data set? It just comes back as a string. Yeah, it comes back as a string. And you have to parse it out. However, virtual Earth understands the string. Okay, I'm going to show you a quick example of the date time data type, because I personally think this is cool. Is because in the past, in SQL Server 2000, is you'll notice, I know you might not be able to see it in the back, it's giving me the time 2007 May 12th, and it gives me 2000 May 12th, and all these zeros. Now, there's a new data type called date. What date does, if I run this, just gives me the short date. We've been begging Microsoft for this for years, haven't we? Split out the date time. So for developer convenience, we now have the ability to split out the date time. So there's a little new developer data type there. We also have time, and in this particular case, you'll see that the range goes down to the nanoseconds if you need it. Maybe if you're scoring the Olympics, you might need nanoseconds or tenths or hundredths of a second. So, if you're writing scientific applications, obviously you're going to be concerned with nanoseconds, right? If you're writing business applications, maybe not. But if you're writing scientific applications, you probably would. So we have here the ability to have an offset of the date time. You'll see a new data type. And what this will do, when we run this, it's actually telling me the difference between these two data types, right? Meaning is I'm telling you on the 18th of August, I'm sorry, the 13th of August at 10:30 a.m. and 39 seconds, subtract 7 minutes from that. Right there is a data type, right? Just called date time offset. So you have the ability to perform intrinsic date time comparisons right in your code. Very, very easy, very straightforward.
Time spent?
Is what?
Time spent?
Time spent? Time span? Yeah, and that's in essence what it's doing. It's
is it equivalent to the .NET time spent?
Oh yes, exactly. That's why they put it in for the integration with that.
I haven't seen any subtraction.
Any what?
Going any subtraction. I haven't seen any subtraction going in the result.
In the result.
Yeah.
That's because I have to show you this one, I believe. Huh. All right. You've caught me. I had something up my sleeve. My beta isn't working, and George can contest. George's entire registry is dead. You're right. The subtraction did not go. And unfortunately, we can't debug that. We'll blame Microsoft. When in doubt, blame Bill Gates, right? Okay, there's one other thing that will happen is when you now are working with the date time fields, you have the ability to segment your data into two data types. If you want to just store the date and the time, or the time and the date. Okay? And as I said, you have the offsets. It's not working. That brings up a good point, which usually comes up about now. No one's asked this question. When will SQL Server 2008 be available? Does anyone want to ask that question?
February?
February 2008? Where's Wabi? Okay, so February 29th, 2008. SQL Server will be launched. You still can't use it. It's still be in beta. I don't get it. It's not going to be available to July of 2008. So just remember that. So Visual Studio 2008 and SQL Server 2008 will be launched in February. Visual Studio 2008 is out. Who has it? Yeah, it's RTM, released to manufacturing. It's out. You can download it, install it on your machine today. SQL Server 2008 is out in July. So what they've done is they picked the middle and said we'll launch both. So unfortunately, SQL Server is a lot further behind. Is a lot further behind. All right. So the other one we're talking about is dynamic development. And this is always my favorite. So T-SQL enhancements. So does everyone know what this is in C#? When you write T-SQL, does it really get you angry that you can't do that? Right, with a string? Well, now you can. Right, so it's a nice little function of T-SQL. There's also a new T-SQL operator called merge, which I'll give you a quick demonstration of. There's also table valued parameters, where you can actually pass in a table value as a parameter. This is great if you'll be using LINQ. I'm not a huge fan of LINQ, but LINQ does have some good applications, so you can actually pass in table valued parameters. You can group sets together and do a lot of other things with event notifications. I will show you. So, the question was, what exactly is a table value parameter? So, picture you're using a link construct and you actually have a table. ADO.NET 3.5 can pass in that table right into SQL Server, and then SQL Server stored procedure can accept that table as an actual parameter. So I've created a type called employee list, created it as a table, and I have employee ID, full name, nvarchar 100. Let's just put this in Steve Temp. I actually might have created this already. Yeah, it already exists. So then I created a stored procedure. The stored procedure accepts a table name as its actual parameter. You'll notice the add is typed as employee list. Employee list was a type I just created as a table. Right? This data type I created right here is now going to be accepted as a parameter to this stored procedure. Okay? So now what's really neat is we can accept things on the client as a table wrapped up, and it can be passed on into SQL Server. So I created this stored procedure already, but let me just recreate it just in case. Yep, it exists. So let's see how this works. So I know it's really small in the back with the resolution, but hopefully you can see okay in the back. So I'm going to declare a variable called employees to add as employee list. I'm going to insert into, you'll notice insert into employees add, employee first name, last name. Doesn't that look like I'm inserting into a table? Right? Anyone write insert into table name ever? Okay. Look familiar? Yes. Awesome. So here are my values. Might as well put myself in. Okay. Then the second value, Bill Gates. And now look, I can actually execute that stored procedure, and I'm passing in the employees to add variable, which is typed as a table. Okay? So we can run this. Now my stored procedure doesn't do anything with that table. I'm just showing you as a demonstration. You obviously would have to open it up, select from it, do something with the data inside that stored procedure. That's up to you. Okay?
Why don't we try it now to let us to explain?
Oh, you're brave. You're very brave. If that works, I'll give you £5.
Okay.
Guess it's not. All right. Who thinks that's going to work? I have true believers here. All right. This is what they teach you in speaker school to never do. Never get tempted by the audience. All right. There we go. Look at that. Our stored procedure selected from the table. Obviously, you're going to want to do something more. I owe you £5, don't I? That's right. I'm sorry. There you go. I got £5 here somewhere. Bakshish. There you go. £1. That's a down payment. I'll give you that. Okay, so obviously you can do a little better than select star, but you get the point. You can pass in a complex data structure in the form of a table. And then you can actually do things with it inside of your stored procedure. Yes, sir?
Where should you declare this data? And somewhere inside this procedure or from the user folder?
The question was, where do I declare this table? You create a user-defined data type in the database.
It should be already there.
It should be already there. Now on the client, and you're in your C# code, you'll pass in a structure of a table, like from Link, if you're using Link. I don't like Link, personally, but I think Link sucks, to be honest. But Link does have some good applications. So I say that to, I was speaking at a conference in Vancouver in Canada about a week or two ago, and the guy who's in charge of Link was in the room. I forgot how close I was to Seattle. I was like 2 hours away. And I never thought the guy who writes Link is going to be in the room. And I'm like, Link sucks! It And he gets up and he's like, no, it doesn't. And I go, yes, it does. Who are you? I'm the guy who wrote it. I'm like, oh, get out of the room. All right, real quickly, the same exact code we just did, saving a step. What we'll do is dynamically do the insert into just in our declare line. Right, so you see I'm declaring the variable, declaring it as an employee list. I'm inserting into, and I'm doing it all in one line. Just save some time. Right? Remember, you can actually use inside of, see how I did that? I just dynamically added in. That's why it says Fred Nurk instead of Steve Forte, the previous example. Right? So you know it's a temporary object. Interestingly enough, even if we're not using link, which hopefully you will, if you're using a data table, who uses data tables inside of data sets? Okay? All you need to do is pass in a data table. And then your stored procedure will understand that.
Will it accept it normally? No problem.
Yeah, you have to do it. You have to use 80. He asked, is it accepted normally? No problem. You have to use ADO 3.5. Right? You can't do it in previous versions of ADO.NET because it will not understand the SQL Server data type.
So I was wondering, how the 3.5 .NET pass it to the SQL Server? I mean, if I open the SQL...
Data adapter?
No, not the SQL that I monitor action device, the monitor
This thing? This thing?
No, on SQL Profiler, I mean.
Oh, profiler.
What I'm going to see in SQL Profiler?
Oh, for that data type?
Yes.
It's going to come up as a complex data type. So the SQL Profile is not going to help you as much. The question is, what do I see in SQL Profiler when I use the data table data type? And what you'll see is a big string representation of that actual table.
Binary?
Binary. Yes.
So I can search for some values that I'm parsing?
Once it's inside a SQL Server, you can, but when it's passing over the wire, you won't be able to search it. Right. I'm not going to pull a profiler. I'm not going to go. That's a guaranteed recipe for disaster. I know that's your next question. And I would say you'd have to give me like £1 million to open SQL Profiler. No, I'm not taking £1. No bakshish. No. Okay, so I'm going to show you one or two more quick things, and then I'll wrap it up and say we'll take a quick break. Everyone can go use the washroom, get some water, and then we'll come back. So I'm just about done. And what I'm going to do is we're going to look at using a new keyword called merge. And if you look here, I have my employees to add, set up as an employee list. If you remember, employee list is the actual table that we've been working with. So I'm going to insert into, Fred Nurk, Bill Gates, Fred Nurk Jr., Steve Ballmer. I'm going to insert all of those. And you'll notice here, I'm going to use this merge statement, and the merge statement is going to allow me to merge the data together. So I'm just going to show you the results, and you'll see kind of what's going on. And the results here give us the ability to see that we had Fred Nurk and Fred Nurk Jr., and now that's been merged in to one record. Right? So it gives you the ability to kind of merge some things together and play with it that way, which is actually pretty cool. And it works with this new data type. So the merge is going to be useful if you're data warehousing. SSIS, exactly. The comment up here is SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services. So that's one area where merge will be very helpful. And last demo of the SQL Server, yes? Yes. So the question was, Fred Neck Jr. has kind of, taken over for Fred Neck, and the answer is yes. You have full control over that, but it allows you to take similar data and merge them together. So it's really helpful in your SSIS packages if you have things like this. Microsoft, Microsoft Inc., Microsoft Incorporated, and you can just say use everything that has Microsoft, merge it into one. At my former company, we had this problem all the time because we spidered the internet. And we had, thousands and thousands of different company names because we spidered job boards. And we would have Microsoft, Microsoft Inc., Microsoft of Egypt, Microsoft of Egypt Inc., Microsoft of Egypt Incorporated, Microsoft of Egypt Limited. I mean, we had millions of permutations. And if we use merge, we can just merge them all into Microsoft. Something like that.
Yeah, actually, no, it's just like what we had the same problem when we were having our demo day registration. It was just like exact same problem about the companies, you know.
So you're definitely going to enjoy using that comment. His comment was the exact same problem. So it's a very common problem. And that's where merge is the solution. Yes, sir?
I thought this happened because you need to define a key in your temporary table, but you didn't define a key, so it's based on what?
The question is, I did not define a key in my temporary table. What happens if you don't set any specifications to merge? It's going to merge on the first space, of your actual line. So it's going to just look for, Bill. Like if I had a Bill Gates, Bill Jones, Bill Smith, we would put all of them into Bill Jones. So this particular query is not as useful, but it gives you the power to have full control over it.
Will it work with any language or only the English?
It will work with any language that your character set is set to. So not just English. It's pattern recognition. It doesn't matter as long as it's a Unicode language.
What if I'm merging source code?
The question is, can I merge source code with that? The answer is probably. That would make another good senior project. He's trying to do, a visual diff. Right, yeah. It probably would work. It'd be a pretty sophisticated piece of T-SQL. Probably above my level of comprehension, but I think you could. Because at the end of the day, the two pieces of source code are just two pieces of text at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
Question?
Can Justin have a look at merge query? Yes.
Yes. You know what I'll do is I will give this SQL script. You can download for free the SQL Server CTP. Just came out about 2-3 weeks ago. And I'll give Ramon the T-SQL script. And then you could he'll put it on the Facebook account or somewhere. And then what I'll do is then you can play with it on your own. There's not enough time to go into the detail in it there.
It merges based on the value of the
first
employee ID.
Oh, the employer ID. Right.
Exactly.
In this particular case, it actually is merging the value of the employer ID. I've had it set in the past to actually merge on the first letter of the first name, so I have Bill Gates and Bill Jones merged together, things like that, exactly. So, one last thing is we have the real simple value of the plus equal, brand new. It works just like you think it would work. And what happens if I run this here? You'll see I come out with 25. Because what it's done is it's taken the first value of 12, added it to 13, and then it comes to the value of 25. So it's a shortcut, just like we're used to doing inside of C#. It gives us a shortcut to actually add those numbers together.
Does it work with any data type or just integers and strings and such?
It will work with integers and strings, but we have been promised that it will work with all data types. So we'll see. In this particular CTP, I haven't gotten it to work with strings in a predictable fashion. So what it's done is it's actually merged. If I put Steve and Forte, it merges together as one string. It doesn't actually add them together, right? So in one case, in previous CTP, it was adding its ANSI equivalent numbers, and I got some weird, strange number back. So it's still getting worked out. Okay. One last thing to talk about for those of you that are doing data warehousing is there's been a lot of work done with data warehousing. One of the interesting things is the merge T-SQL operator. The merge T-SQL operator will help you writing your SSIS packages. And there's a lot of algorithm changes to the data mining, using a lot of statistical algorithms like cluster analysis. And there's also with fuzzy lookups, where you can have some change data captures, where you're capturing data from user input. You can actually start looking at the deltas of those particular changes. There's a lot of changes when you're dealing with large amounts of data in a data warehousing environment. There's also been a lot of enhancements to the cubes when working with the cubes with the design tools in Visual Studio and in the Visual Studio Business Intelligence Workbench, which ships with SQL Server 2008. So there's new cube design tools, meaning new wizards, right? I tell you, the cube wizard, if you're using fact tables, is the best wizard on the planet because it actually guesses all your dimension tables for you and does a really good job of it. And what I like about it is you can tell your boss you're doing a lot of work. And in reality, you're just running a wizard, clicking next, next, next. So they actually have something like show plan for your MDX queries. Is anyone here writing MDX queries? Nobody. Wow. No data warehousing in Egypt? You have no data? Anyone using reporting services?
Sure.
Okay, I figured somebody would be using reporting services. So here's the cool thing. This may not be a big deal, but you can actually deploy the reporting engine to Apache.
What?
What?
Service?
What? Huh? It is an IIS agnostic reporting engine. Whether that makes it to the final release, we'll see. But real cool is you can also render a report in DOCX format as a Microsoft Word document. How many users ask for that? I get that all the time. It's kind of like a glorified mail merge. You can actually build reports and deploy them as Microsoft Word. Anyone do significant invoicing? Right? Would you rather invoice with HTML or Microsoft Word? Who said HTML? You. Get out. So rather, or PDF. Well, you can still do PDF with Microsoft Word. So what happens is we're building these invoices in HTML. We always want the power of the database, but now with reporting services, you can render it as a Word document. You can actually perform your invoicing that way. Question?
The reporting service has something you can export to Excel and
That's the old
PDF.
version.
But however,
It's manual. Right. You actually can't design a report in with Word yourself. Now you actually can.
But
It will render it as Word, as opposed
actually
to.
what they do is getting like boxes of everything.
If you can't hear in the back, the comment was just saying how much it sucks today to try to export a Word document from SQL Server reporting services. Okay, so lastly, how many people who use SSIS would rather use C# instead of VB? Your dreams have been answered. So you can actually do C# inside of SQL Server reporting services. This would always drive me crazy because all my developers use C#, and then we have to switch gears into VB when we use SSIS. Okay, so what I did is I just tried to give you a high overview in those 20 or 30 minutes of just what SQL Server 2008 is all about. As I said, we're going to switch gears and talk about design patterns, but we're going to take a strict 15-minute break. So it is 8:08. What's 15 minutes from now, Ramon?
ثانية واحدة بس ما حدش يقلق منها كلها تحط على السايت بتاع اليوزر جروب. حد ما يعرفش السايت بتاع اليوزر جروب؟ اوكي انا هحطه دلوقتي هو والميل جروب والحاجات دي كلها هحطها في اخر السيشن الثانية او دلوقتي في البريك عشان اللي عايزها ينقلها او اي حاجة يرجستر على طول اوكي؟
I have my character set to 1256. Select answer